2015 to order at 6:30 p.m. And as we normally do, just ask everyone to please silence your phones, staff as well, and board. And then usually what we do is just do an introduction of the board and staff. And Ms. Erweiler, did you want to introduce the Ms. McNeese, our new planner?
Yes. We've had since your last meeting, our regular planner, our city planner, Michelle Wagner, has left us. And so for the foreseeable future, Patricia McNeese from my office, who's our principal planner, is going to be filling in as your staff liaison. At some point in time, when we get a new staff member, we'll bring that new staff member forward and introduce you guys. And hopefully that staff member will be there. But for the short term, Pat will be with you guys. So.
Thank you. If you want to go ahead and start, Mr. Erweiler, at your end, we'll do the introductions.
Sure. I'm Heather Erweiler. I'm the Planning and Zoning Director.
Pat McNeese, Principal Planner.
Patrick Perez, Board Attorney.
Carrie Page, Board Member.
Cindy Terrapini, Board Member.
Earl Johnson, Board Member. Laura Milford, Board Member.
Kimberly Others, Secretary to the Board.
And one of the most important people. Make sure we get it all written down. Miss Kim, if you would call the others, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Terrapini.
Present.
Ms. Page.
Here.
Ms. Johnson.
Here.
Ms. Milford.
Here.
Ms. Bean.
So just for everyone on the board and for the our visitors today and the one application we have a less than a full board, which is we're normally a 5-member board. We have 4 tonight. It does require 3 votes for approval or denial, either way. So when we get to that point, if there's any indication that you might not have those 3 votes, you do have the option as the applicant to continue the case to the next month. That's always the applicant's opportunity. So just want to point that out. And then because Mr. Bolton was previously served as the vice chair and he resigned last month, we need to elect a new vice chair. And as what our bylaws say is that the vice chair basically serves when the chairman cannot run the meeting or in other capacities. So I will open the floor for a nomination for the vice chair. I cannot make a motion as a chair, so. If anyone would like to volunteer, that's okay too. Do we have any volunteers? You only have to run the meeting if I'm not here. Okay, thank you. Ms. Johnson volunteers. Will nominate. Do I hear a motion to nominate Ms. Johnson to serve as the vice chair?
Yeah.
Ms. Milford made the nomination. Is there a second to the nomination?
There's a second.
Seconded by Mrs. Page. Any more nominations from the floor? May I have the roll call, please, Ms. Yothers?
Ms. Milford.
Yes.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
Ms. Page.
Yes.
Mrs. Terrapini.
Yes, so the motion passes 4-0. Congratulations, Ms. Johnson. Serve now as our vice chair. We also always have an item on the agenda for public comments. This is for items that are not on the agenda. If there's something other than the case that we have on Lemon Street that folks would like to be here to talk about, now is the time. We'd ask you to come up to the podium and give us your name and address, and we're happy to hear your comments.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Dively. I live at 215 Pineapple Street, Tarpon Springs. I'm here in reference to, I think what was approved in November, 301 Bay Street. And as you all might know, there's been some real community involvement in this now that a lot of people weren't informed about the meeting. And I know there's a 200-foot rule, so I know you only send stuff to so many people. But I was told, and I don't know if this is true or not, that there is some sort of statute that sometimes the Historic Preservation Board supersedes the height limits of what the city requires. Now, that was a 20-foot, height allowance as that 2-car, they say, garage. I didn't know if there was some way that you guys could research that. There's the place looks, it's like a above ground, bunker. I know maybe it will look different when it's finished, but we are all just really dismayed about it and want to know if this is something that could continue. in our neighborhood. I know there's other two-story apartments that have been there for between 50 and 80 years before there were any zoning requirements or, anything like that. And all I'm asking, that I know it's been approved, and you can't most of the time take it back, but I will reference one case that on the corner of Lemon and Banana, the two-story yellow house, she put a fence up with a city permit, and they went through, they didn't realize she was in a historic district. The fence was approved. It was a chain link. The fence had to be torn down. The city had to pay her to tear it down and for the cost of that. So all I'm asking for is to see if there's any way that you can look into this. We're finding this, the way they place the building on the property, right next to somebody else's home instead of on the other side where they'd be next to a garage. There could have been maybe better ways. And plus the fact that they aren't even they're in a floodplain per se, but their elevation of their property is at least 10 feet. So there wasn't I don't think, the worry of flooding there. So it's just something I would appreciate if you guys could do some research on. Like I said, I know you approved it. I didn't speak them because I was shocked that you did approve it. I was really literally shocked because it doesn't fit with the neighborhood. The house is small, the lot is very small, and it just is an eyesore. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Just, Ms. Diley, to answer your one question and then an idea, a comment generally. One is the board's, in reviewing an application, whatever the board approves does govern whether or not that's, say, the height limit in a district to say it's 35 feet and what's approved is 25 feet, then yes, the HPB does supersede the zoning because it's reducing it less than zoning. We can't give you more height. You'd have to go to the Board of Adjustment or, some other method to do that.
So did you approve 20 feet?
To tell you the truth, I got a packet on this from the neighbor nearby, and I was going to bring it up at the end, but I'd like to hear the other comments too, because
Yeah, I understand. You had public comments now, so I wanted to make a comment, that's all.
Right, when I looked at the November minutes, I noted that it says in there that the applicant stated that the building would only be 2.5 feet taller than the existing house. And the photos that I got that were sent to me, and maybe some of the other board members got them too, it looks a lot taller than that.
And they haven't done
So-
the trusses yet.
Yeah, and we can't, at this point, we can't take any action to change the application because the application is done.
I
the appeal
understand.
period's filed. But I would, if the board's interested, I think it might require at least asking the staff to look into it, see if the building permit was issued consistent with our approval. That's the only other possibility, is somehow whoever reviewed it didn't review it correctly against what the board approved. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that's one option.
Okay. Well, the city won't measure it until the trusses go up.
That I don't know.
That's not up to you. I understand that. We have asked for that too. But of course, nobody else can go in and measure it. The people have been out of town for a very long time. But here and there, but I appreciate your input, and I just feel that it could be a starting of something that we don't really want in our neighborhood. One-story garage, great. Go for it. But when you start building these big, tall structures in a community of these homes, or mostly one story, now there are two-story homes, I understand, does not do justice to our neighborhood. And I think we have to take a serious look at what the historic neighborhood stands for and what they're going to look at to in the future. Because if that's the way it's going to go, then I don't know the reason for being an historic district. Okay, thank you very much.
And the only other thing I was going to say to you and to the rest of the group and to anyone who might be watching this is we do have a relatively small notice list, but the agenda gets posted online. The meeting is almost always the first Monday of the month, and it gets posted online by Wednesday, Thursday, the week before. So that's a good way to check. Of course, all the city's agendas are too, the city commission meeting, the Board of Adjustment, the planning commission. So that's a really good way, even if you're not in the distance area, but you're just concerned because you live in the district, you can check that agenda and you can see the whole application, you can see the staff report, you can see everything for that agenda. So I would
No, and I
encourage you-
appreciate that, and I understand that. But my concern is that the historic district is a little bit different, and I do feel that more people should be notified. In fact, anyone in not the 200 plus or whatever homes, but people in the general area, like all of Bay Street. I was notified, and I live because I live within 200 feet. Yes, I can see the structure from my home. So I'm just saying that might be something to be consideration of in the future, who is being notified. is it a little bit different than a regular neighborhood? Not that they're not a great neighborhood too, but we're trying to preserve what we have. And yes, people could have looked it up and maybe they forgot or whatever, but I think that that's something I'm just asking you guys as board members to consider, that perhaps more people need to be notified when these kind of, things are put on the agenda. I mean, when you're sending out the notices. I just think that might be a smart idea, because I think a lot of people have come here out of, okay, maybe they didn't look up the website, they didn't expect it, and all of a sudden, yes, we have this thing now. And it's become kind of a neighborhood thing. And not everyone will come. 20% of the people do 80% of the work. So, I've gotten phone calls from people, talked to different people. No one's really happy about it, but do they actually want to come to the meeting and complain about it? Maybe not. So, but thank you again.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Good evening. My name is Ron Haddad. My wife and I live on the corner of Bay and Lime Street, 334 Bay Street. We've lived there for 18 years. And I also want to speak about the structure that's going up behind the home at 301 Bay Street. As we've mentioned, there are potentially some height issues that need to be carefully monitored. There are also some setback issues that need to be watched out for. And I spoke to someone, I believe City Manager Mark LaCouris, and I believe Heather as well, have been periodically driving by just to kind of monitor the progress of the structure. As you know, the roof is not on yet, and the height is somewhere in the area of 18.5 feet. So they don't have too much room to go before it reaches the maximum 20 feet. So at any rate, I do hope this will continue to be monitored. But what I want to say most is that, as I said, my wife and I have lived in our home. It's an old home, 95 years old. We have lived there for 18 years, and some 8, 9, 10 years ago, we were approached, we meaning the neighborhood, were approached by the city to ask if we would consider becoming part of the historic district in Tarpon Springs. And I can remember my dates, it may be more than 8 or 9 years, maybe less, but I can remember we had a couple of neighborhood meetings where we all discussed whether do we really want to do this, because if so, there are going to be some issues that we have to abide by. Anyway, after a number of meetings, we said yes, and we went back to the city and we said, yes, we would like to be part of the historic district in Tarpon Springs. We were told at that point that we would not be allowed to change the color of the exterior of our home without there being a very careful review. We were not allowed to make any changes to the exterior of our home. We were not able to add additions to our home without there being a very careful and scrutinizing review of what we wanted to do so that it would not distort the historical district, okay? And I have to admit, I can't see this structure behind 301 Bay Street from my home. I'm on the other end. But I have walked by, I take my bike ride by, I have driven by. I believe that this violates the very spirit of the historical district that we all wanted to become part of. And I am just amazed that this was approved. And I know that the plans, met specs and code and stuff like that. But it seems to me that this is another Airbnb rental unit that the owners, they have several in Tarpon Springs. I have access to the architectural plans. There's a full bathroom upstairs. There's a walk-in closet. I mean, is this an office? I'm just amazed that this was approved. So that's my piece.
Thank you, Mr. Haddad. And just to clarify one thing, color is one of the very few things that we do not review. All the other exterior renovations you spoke about do get reviewed either by the staff or the board, but we don't review color at all. So any color you want to paint your house, feel free to go ahead. Be sure and get a permit, but we don't review the color. But thank you for your comments. Anyone else? I was going to bring this up at the end of the meeting, but just briefly, Ms. Erwaller, can you tell us what's going on with this? Because the photos I got from an adjoining neighbor seem like it's awfully tall and much taller than what I thought was approved.
At this time, it's been evaluated consistent with your approval and with the building permit that was issued. And the staff is monitoring the height issue as the trusses go up. But at this time, that is all that I have for an update.
So you're saying the permit that was issued was consistent with our approval?
Was consistent with your approval. There was nothing in the approval that specified height outside of what's allowed, and what's allowed in for an accessory structure that's detached in any district is 20 feet.
I don't unfortunately have the application here in front of me, but I specifically remember the applicant, it even says in the minutes that he stated that the garage was only going to be 2.5 feet higher than the house in front of it. And that was the plans that they submitted. Now, whether or not he had the number right or not, I'm just saying that's what's in the minutes. So what I'm asking is, were the plans that he showed to the HPB the same set of plans that he got a permit for?
Yes, they were consistent with what was approved by this board, are the same set of plans that are in the building permit file.
Well, I guess there's no need to belabor the point unless other board members have comments. I personally voted against it, and I'll get, yes, ma'am. Because I don't think a 2-story garage at a 1-story house is appropriate. It's not accessory. I was in the minority, but I mean, I think this is the problem that you have when you get a 2-story building, when you have a 1-story house and everything around it was 1-story. But again, this board can't take any action tonight other than listen to what the comments are. And Ms. Johnson?
Well, the thing that I recall is that what was presented was that the structure was 18 feet 6 and some fraction of an inch, not 20 feet.
What's allowed in the district is 20 feet, and what is on the building permit is consistent with what was there is 18, and I think 18.6 on yours, and it's less than that on there. But I don't have any of that information in front of me, so I'm quoting off the cuff, off the top of my head. But all of that's available. If anybody on the board would like to see those things, we can pull those files and have them available for your review, just as they've been available to the general public throughout this discussion.
So just for my clarification, are they bound then by the 18.6 and change?
They are bound by what is provided on the building permit and consistent with your approval. That is what they're bound to.
So even though the code would allow them to go 20 feet on accessory structure, because the HPB had plans that we approved were 18.6, that's what they're permitted.
That's correct.
Any other comments? Again, we thank you for coming. I appreciate your concerns. Again, there's nothing that we can do at this point. I'm sure you can keep in touch with the staff as the progress goes. But I would really encourage you guys to look at the agendas online. The whole package is there. And, when I wasn't on the board, I just made a mental note. I live in the district. I care about, we own property in the district, not just in our house. And I just looked at the agenda online the last week of every month. I just had it in my head. Okay, Wednesday, Thursday last week, go online, check the agenda, see if there's anything that I should be concerned about or in support of. Obviously, if you're supportive of an application, we would like to hear from you too. So just encourage you to keep in touch that way. I know the notice list is a little tight. Any other comments unrelated to this? Any other public comments? Okay, can we move on to the approval of the minutes for our June 4th meeting? I had a couple of revisions. Do other folks have revisions first? Anyone have any revisions? All right, on page 2, I think it's important when there's someone who votes against an application and is in the minority. I think that minority opinion needs to be represented in the minutes as to why, or for any sort of a denial needs to be represented. And on the case with regard to the 2 signs at 13 South Safford, I voted against that, but I believe that before the vote that I noted that I was not in support of the bike sign since it did not meet the design guidelines. I think that needs to be added to the minutes. On page 5, under 101 South Pinellas, this was the Old City Hall discussion about the window replacement. Under the board discussion about halfway down, there's an incomplete sentence. It starts, Mrs. Terrapini asked what the distinction was between, and the sentence is not complete. I believe from the context that the question I asked Ms. Salaga was, what was the distinction between the rating system of very poor, poor, fair, good, very good? That seems to be the right thing to complete that sentence, if everyone agrees. Okay. Because this was we had so many discussions about the options on page 7 at the vote. The motion was to deny option 7, not options, plural. So if we could clarify that. And those are my corrections. Move those corrections? Or do we need a motion to correct the minutes?
You can just move to vote on the minutes as amended.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
I so
Moved by Ms. Johnson. Is there a second?
I second.
Seconded by Ms. Page. Any further discussion on the minutes? The others, would you call the roll, please?
Miss Milford,
yes.
Miss Johnson,
Yes.
Miss Page,
Yes.
Mrs. Terrapini.
Yes. The minutes are approved as amended. Mr. Perez, did you want to give us the quasi-judicial announcement, please?
This is a quasi-judicial proceeding where the Heritage Preservation Board acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At a quasi-judicial hearing, it is not the board's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the board is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. The board may only consider evidence at this hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has met the criteria established in the Code of Ordinances, then the board is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. By the same token, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the Code of Ordinances, then the board is required by law to find against the applicant. Are there any members of the board tonight that wish to disclose any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest? If anyone is going to be speaking tonight, they could please stand and raise their right hand to be sworn in.
If you're the applicant, you need to stand and be sworn in.
Yeah, if you're the applicant or you think you might
Want to
speak,
speak, you need to. If you want to speak, you need to stand.
please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give tonight is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So sworn.
Thank you. First case tonight is application 18-65. It's 319 West Lemon Street for a new roof. Ms. McNeese, did you want to give us the staff report?
Sure. This is application to completely replace, re-roof an existing composite shingle roof with a standing seam metal roof. This is at 319 West Lemon Street. It's a frame vernacular structure that is contributing altered in the district. The applicant is present to speak to this application. This roof is not proposed to result in any alteration to any of the architectural features of the home or the form of the roof or any of the noted features attendant to the roof that are in the site file form. This was noticed, and we did not receive any response to public notices. And staff recommends approval of the application for a certificate of approval. Are there any questions?
I have one question, Ms. McNeese. So the reason it's coming to the board as opposed to staff approval is that the material of the roof is different. The style is the same, but the materials are different. It's a different roof material.
That's correct.
Thank you. Other questions? Ms. McNeese? Okay, we'd like to hear from the applicant, please. You could please use that podium so the microphone can pick it up, and if you give your name and address and your
My address? Or
address.
Hi, my name is Jeff Miller. I'm a project manager for Aries Roofing, and we're proposing on re-roofing a house at 319 West Lemon Street. They'll be going from a 3-tab shingle to a standing seam galvanized roof. I have pictures and a sample of the metal.
Yeah, you can pass out the sample. I think we have all the pictures in
You have
our
pictures?
package, but we're always interested to see the material. Sharp?
Yep.
it's going to be that color. Anything else you'd like to add?
Pretty simple.
So no change to the roof structure, no change to the roof
Not-
pitch.
Nothing.
None of, all that is exactly the same. You're just going to take off the roof materials that's there and put on
Correct.
this new standing seam metal roof.
Correct.
Okay. Any other comments, questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll hear from the public if there's anyone here that wants to speak in favor or against, or just comment generally.
Again, I'm Nancy Dively, 215 Pineapple Street, and I'm just here to speak for this application to be approved. To be honest with you, they are neighbors of mine and friends of mine, but I've probably never seen such a spectacular remodel of a small home in our neighborhood. And I just think that that tin roof, or metal roof, as they call it, would be like a crown on this little property. There are several metal roofs in our community, and we've lost several due to cost. A lot of people have, before the historic district, removed their metal roofs and replaced with shingle, because it is an expensive proposition. So anyway, I am not opposed to it. I hope you vote to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Diley. Other comments?
My name's Bill Sprecher. I live across the street at 405 West Lemon, and I'm in agreement with the two. Metal roof always enhances the roofs on an old district like ours, so it fits in very nice.
Thank you so much,
Okay.
Mr. Sprecher. Any other comments from the public? All right, I'll close the public hearing. It's now to the board for discussion, comments, questions, and a motion whenever you're ready. Hearing no comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to move that the board approves application CA 1865 as submitted.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Page to approve it as submitted. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Milford. Any further discussion on this item? Okay. Ms. Yothers, would you call the vote, please? Call the
Ms.
roll, please.
Milford?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Page?
Yes.
Mrs. Terrapini?
Yes. Your application's approved. I know you know to go get a building permit. I'd just like to say that to remind everybody. And thank you for coming to the board. We appreciate it.
You can have it.
Okay. Now to staff comments.
No staff comments this evening.
None?
No.
Trying to get a world record out of here before 7? Is that
Well, we
the
set
idea?
one last time for
Yeah,
the
that-
longest.
All right, board comments? I had two things. One was what we just already discussed on the application. There's no need to go over that again. And then the other, I'm on the historical, Division of Historical Resources mailing list, so I get this stuff. I'm hoping you guys do too, Pat. But since Ms. Wagner's not with us anymore and she filed that grant application, I just want to be sure you knew that it's going to be reviewed the end of August. And I guess there's a way for you to connect in through the web and answer any questions. So I just want to make sure that you guys were aware of that, since I wasn't sure if it was going to her email or how that worked.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
This
So
help.
it's moving along. That's the grant for the design guideline. That's great. Anything else to come before the board today? Ms. McNeese, anything else? Mr. Pratt? All right, so our next meeting is August 6th, Monday, August 6th, and we'll adjourn the meeting now at 6:59. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you.
World record.
It's balanced out.
Yeah, right. We do have a new member. She's not here tonight. It's actually the owner of that house that we just had, Mr. Cornell.